The morning sun rose over the hills of Nova Esperanza, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jack Miller watched from his bedroom window as farmers headed to the fields. At 12 years old, he had the curious eyes of his mother and the gentle smile of his father. He grabbed his backpack and ran downstairs for breakfast. "Dad, can I go to the observatory after school today?" Jack asked, sliding into his chair at the kitchen table. Daniel Miller looked up from his tablet where he studied crop growth charts. He smiled at his son and placed a bowl of oatmeal in front of him. "Sure, but be home before dark. Your mom is calling tonight." Jack's face lit up. "Really? I thought she was busy with fleet stuff. General Miller always makes time for you." "No matter how many star systems away she is," Daniel said, ruffling Jack's hair. Jack ate quickly, excited about both the call from his mother and his visit to the observatory. Nova Esperanza was one of humanity's newer colonies, established just 15 years ago. Most people here were farmers or scientists. Jack's father was both, a top agricultural scientist who had developed crops that could grow in the colony's unique soil. What most colonists didn't know was that Jack's mother, Catherine Miller, commanded Earth's powerful Seventh Fleet. She had deliberately placed her family on this quiet, remote colony to keep them safe from political enemies and potential threats. Only a handful of people knew the connection between the friendly boy who loved stars and the woman who controlled enough firepower to level a moon. "Dad, do you think Mom will be home for my birthday next month?" Jack asked, putting his bowl in the sink. Daniel's smile faltered slightly. "She's trying, buddy. The situation with the Zarathian Empire is complicated right now." Jack nodded. He understood more than most kids his age. The Zarathian Galactic Empire had ruled most of the known galaxy for centuries before humans arrived on the scene. The massive reptilian aliens tolerated humans as long as they stayed within their approved territories. "I should get to school. Miss Olivia is teaching us about black holes today," Jack said, heading for the door. "Learn something amazing," Daniel called after him. Jack jogged down the dirt path that led from their modest home to the colony's small school. He waved at neighbors and friends along the way. Everyone knew Jack, the bright-eyed boy always asking questions about the universe. What Jack didn't know was that everything was about to change. That afternoon, while Jack was at school, 3 Zarathian ships appeared in the sky above Nova Esperanza. Their angular, metallic forms cast long shadows over the fields and buildings. Colony alarms blared, calling everyone to the central square. Jack's teacher, Miss Olivia, gathered her students. "Stay calm, children. This is probably just a routine inspection." But the worry in her eyes told Jack it was more serious. They joined the stream of colonists heading to the square. Jack searched for his father and spotted him near the front, talking urgently with the colony's council members. By the time Jack reached him, the Zarathians had landed. 7 tall figures emerged from the lead ship. Their scaled skin gleamed under the sun, ranging from deep blue to purple. They moved with rigid precision, each step measured and deliberate. The leader stepped forward. His uniform bore more decorations than the others, and a scar ran across his snout. "I am Commander Zoltar of the Zarathian Empire. We have orders to relocate this colony immediately." The colony leader, Mayor Susan Grant, stepped forward. "On what grounds?" "We have permission to be here. All our paperwork is in order." Commander Zoltar's mouth twisted in what humans had learned was a Zarathian smile, never a good sign. "New orders. Resources have been discovered beneath this settlement. The Empire claims them." Daniel Miller stepped forward. Jack had never seen his father look so serious. "We have families here, homes, farms. We can't just leave." "You have 3 days," Zoltar said coldly. Mayor Grant shook her head. "The agreement with the Empire guarantees us at least 30 days' notice before any relocation." "The agreement has changed," Zoltar replied. The crowd grew restless. People began shouting questions and protests. Jack felt fear rising in his chest as he watched his father stand firm. "We will contact Earth government," Daniel said calmly. "There are diplomatic channels for this." Something changed in Zoltar's posture. He straightened, his tail stiffening behind him. There is no negotiation. This world now belongs fully to the Empire. Jack pushed through the crowd, wanting to be closer to his dad. As he moved forward, a younger Zarathian soldier noticed the movement. The soldier was jumpy, his scales raised in what xenobiologists had identified as anxiety. "Dad!" Jack called out. Several things happened at once. Daniel turned toward his son's voice. The nervous Zarathian soldier flinched at the sudden movement and raised his weapon. Commander Zoltar barked an order in their native language. But it was too late. A flash of blue light erupted from the soldier's weapon. Jack felt strange. For a moment, he didn't understand why everyone was shouting. Then he looked down and saw the smoking hole in his chest. He tried to speak, but no words came. The world tilted sideways as he fell. Daniel caught his son before he hit the ground. "Jack!" "No, no, no," he cried, cradling the boy's head. Jack tried to focus on his father's face, but his vision was darkening around the edges. His last thought was that he would miss his call with his mother. Then, nothing. The colony square exploded in chaos. Colonists screamed and scattered. Daniel held his son's lifeless body, tears streaming down his face. Commander Zoltar assessed the situation with cold efficiency. An unfortunate incident. The boy should not have moved suddenly. Daniel looked up, his face transformed by grief and rage. His name was Jack Miller. His mother is General Catherine Miller of Earth's 7th Fleet. She will destroy you for this. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Zoltar's face. A regrettable casualty, but the Empire's decision stands. 3 days. The Zarathians retreated to their ships, leaving the colonists to their grief. They had no way of knowing what they had just done. They had no idea they had just killed the only child of the most methodical, brilliant, and merciless military mind humanity had produced in generations. As Daniel held his son's body, a colony communications officer approached him hesitantly. "Sir," she said quietly, "we've sent an emergency message to Earth Command. They'll contact the general." Daniel nodded numbly. He knew what was coming. Catherine had always been measured and strategic, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. But he had seen another side of her, the protective mother who would tear apart galaxies for her child. The Zarathian Empire had just made the worst mistake in its 1,000-year history. They had killed a human boy, unaware that his mother was a merciless human general, and she was coming for them. General Catherine Miller stood tall as she faced the alien diplomats. Her uniform was perfect, her posture straight as steel. No one in the room could guess that inside, her heart was breaking apart. "Thank you for your cooperation," she said to the blue-skinned representatives. "Earth values this new trade agreement." Admiral Patricia Rivera watched from nearby. She had served with Catherine for 15 years and knew all her expressions. Something was wrong. Catherine's hand had tightened on her datapad twice in the last minute. The meeting ended, and Catherine walked calmly to the hallway. Patricia followed. "General, you received a message?" Patricia asked quietly. Catherine's face remained still, but her eyes had changed. "My office now." They walked in silence through the halls of the Earth diplomatic station. Officers and crew moved out of their way, sensing the tension. Once inside her office, Catherine pressed a button that sealed the room and blocked all recording devices. Only then did she speak. Nova Esperanza was visited by Zarathian forces yesterday. Her voice was flat. They demanded immediate evacuation. When the colonists requested time to follow proper procedures, there was an incident. Patricia felt cold. She knew Catherine's family lived on Nova Esperanza. "Jack is dead," Catherine said. The words hung in the air. "A Zarathian soldier shot my son in the chest during the confrontation." Patricia stepped forward. "Catherine, don't." Catherine raised her hand. "Not now." Catherine turned to her computer and entered a series of codes that Patricia had never seen before. Screens filled with information about Zarathian military bases, defense systems, ship movements, and communication protocols. "You've been collecting intelligence on them?" Patricia said in surprise. For 8 years, Catherine replied. Ever since I learned about the silent disappearances of human colonies on the outer rim, the colonies everyone thought just failed naturally. Catherine's fingers moved across the screen, pulling up more files. The Zerathians have been systematically eliminating human settlements that discover valuable resources. They make it look like natural disasters or colonist infighting. You never reported this? I reported it. Earth Command didn't want to risk war with the Empire. They called my evidence inconclusive. Catherine's voice remained eerily calm. So I prepared, gathered information, created contingency plans. For what? Catherine looked up, and Patricia stepped back involuntarily. The general's eyes held something she had never seen before. For the day the Zerathians went too far, Catherine answered. Catherine opened a communication line to Earth Command. President Alan Garcia's face appeared on screen. He looked grave. General Miller, we've just received word about Nova Esperanza, about your son. I want to express my deepest. I'm activating Operation Nemesis, Catherine interrupted. The president's expression changed. That operation was never approved. It needs to be now. Catherine sent files to his screen. These are the latest movements of Zerathian forces. They're not just taking Nova Esperanza. They're preparing for a full offensive against 3 other human colonies. The president studied the information. This is concerning, but we need diplomatic solutions first. Diplomacy failed my son, Catherine said. It will fail those colonies too. What exactly are you proposing, General? Give me command of the 3rd, 5th, and 9th fleets in addition to my 7th. I'll secure human interests in the sector. That's nearly half of Earth's military strength, the president protested. Catherine's face remained calm. The Zerathians believe we're weak. They think we'll accept the death of a human child as an unfortunate incident. They think we'll retreat from Nova Esperanza without a fight. They've been eliminating our colonies for years, and we've done nothing. Patricia watched as Catherine sent more files to the president. These are the locations of 23 human colonies that the Zerathians made disappear, Catherine continued. Nearly 30,000 lives, all covered up by imperial bureaucracy. My son is just the latest victim. The president's face paled as he reviewed the evidence. I'm not asking for revenge, Catherine said, though Patricia knew that wasn't entirely true. I'm asking for the authority to show the Zerathian Empire that humanity will not be slowly exterminated. The president was silent for a long moment. What is your plan? Surgical strikes against military targets. Minimal civilian casualties. Maximum impact on their command structure. I'll show them exactly who they're dealing with. After another long pause, the president nodded. You have temporary command of the requested fleets. Secure human interests through any means necessary, but avoid all-out war if possible. I want daily reports. Yes, sir, Catherine replied. The communication ended. Catherine turned to Patricia. Admiral Rivera, you'll command the 7th during the operation. I'll coordinate all 4 fleets from the UES Vengeance. Patricia stared at her friend. Catherine, you just lost your son. Maybe you should take some time to... Time is what the enemy wants. Catherine cut her off. I'll grieve when our people are safe. Catherine walked to her personal locker and opened it. Inside was a small silver box. She took it out and opened the lid. Patricia saw that it contained ashes and a wedding ring. Daniel died 2 years ago, Catherine said softly. Cancer. Jack was all I had left. Catherine removed her own wedding ring and placed it in the box with the ashes. She closed the lid and returned the box to the locker. The only thing she took out was a small hollow photo of a smiling boy. He wanted to be a scientist like his father, Catherine said, looking at the image. He loved the stars. She slipped the photo into her uniform pocket. When Catherine looked up again, her face had changed completely. Patricia felt a chill run down her spine. The grief was hidden now, replaced by something cold and calculating. Send orders to all fleet commanders, Catherine instructed. We depart in 6 hours. Set course for Zerathian Outpost XO729. That's The command post for the patrol that killed my son. Yes. Catherine's voice was ice. First, we give them a chance to surrender the soldiers responsible. Then we show them exactly what they've awakened. As Patricia left to carry out the orders, she glanced back at Catherine. The general stood perfectly, still staring at the star map, already planning her moves like the brilliant tactician she was. The Zarathian Empire had ruled through fear for centuries. They had never faced an opponent like Catherine Miller, a mother with nothing left to lose and the strategic mind to make them pay for their mistakes. They had killed her boy. Now they would learn why that was the worst decision in their empire's long history. Lieutenant Gregory Nelson had served on the UES Vengeance for 3 years, but he had never seen the ship like this. The massive vessel hummed with energy as it led a fleet of over 60 human warships toward Zarathian space. Crew members spoke, in hushed tones, moving with purpose. Everyone knew why they were here. Greg stood on the bridge, datapad in hand, waiting for General Miller. The doors slid open and the crew snapped to attention. Catherine Miller walked onto the bridge, her uniform crisp, her face composed. If Greg hadn't known about her son, he would never have guessed she was grieving. "Status report," she said, taking her place at the command station. "We'll reach Zarathian Outpost X0729 in 20 minutes, General," Greg reported. "The rest of the fleet is in formation." Catherine nodded. "Open a channel to the outpost when we're in range." Greg watched her carefully. Rumors had spread through the ship about what happened on Nova Esperanza. Some crew members wanted revenge. Others feared starting a war. Greg wasn't sure what to think, but he trusted the general. He had seen her resolve conflicts peacefully in the past. "Lieutenant Nelson, what do you know about X0729? Catherine asked suddenly. Greg straightened. "It's a medium-sized Zarathian military outpost, General, home to approximately 5,000 personnel. Commander Zoltar was assigned there 3 years ago." "And what else?" Greg hesitated. "It's the command center for patrol operations in this sector, including the patrol that visited Nova Esperanza." Catherine's eyes remained fixed on the view screen. "It's also where they train their soldiers, including the young one who shot my son." The bridge fell silent. Greg felt a chill. The general's voice hadn't changed, but there was something in it that made everyone uncomfortable. "We're in range, General," the communications officer announced. "On screen," Catherine ordered. The face of a Zarathian appeared. Greg recognized Commander Zoltar from the intelligence files. The scar across his snout made him easily identifiable. "This is Commander Zoltar of the Zarathian Empire. Human vessels, you have entered restricted space. Withdraw immediately." Catherine stood. "Commander Zoltar, I am General Catherine Miller of Earth Command." For the first time, Greg saw emotion on a Zarathian face. Zoltar's scales shifted color slightly. "You are the mother of the boy," Zoltar said. "Jack Miller, my son." Catherine's voice remained calm. "I have a simple request, Commander. Surrender the soldier who fired the shot, along with yourself, to face justice for your actions on Nova Esperanza." Zoltar's posture stiffened. The incident was regrettable but occurred during an official Imperial action. The soldier acted within protocols. "Shooting an unarmed child is within your protocols?" Catherine asked. "The Empire does not answer to human authorities," Zoltar replied. "You have 5 minutes to withdraw your fleet or face consequences." Catherine nodded as if she had expected this answer. "Lieutenant Nelson, activate targeting systems." Greg complied, watching as the ship's computers locked onto the outpost's defensive systems. "What are you doing?" Zoltar demanded. "Showing you what humanity has been hiding," Catherine replied. She pressed a button on her console. Throughout the fleet, hidden weapon ports opened, revealing technology the Zarathians had never seen before. "General, the fleet is ready," Admiral Rivera reported from her ship. "Disable their defensive grid," Catherine ordered. "Non-lethal strikes only." Greg watched in amazement as precisely targeted energy pulses hit the outpost. The Zarathian shields flickered and died. Their weapon systems went offline. Their communications array sparked and failed, all without a single explosion or casualty. "What is this?" Zoltar's voice had changed. There was fear in it now. "This is humanity showing restraint," Catherine answered. "We could have destroyed your outpost, instead we disabled it." The view screen split to show multiple Zarathian ships powering up near the outpost. "They're launching fighters, General," Greg reported. "Let them come," Catherine said. "Target engines only." The human fleet moved with perfect coordination. Smaller, faster ships intercepted the Zarathian fighters. Instead of destroying them, they fired precise shots that disabled the alien vessels, leaving them drifting in space. In less than 10 minutes, the entire outpost defense force was neutralized without a single death. Zoltar's face returned to the screen. "How is this possible? Human technology is inferior to ours." "No," Catherine said. "We simply chose not to show our true capabilities. Until now." She nodded to the communications officer, who sent a file to the outpost. On every screen in the Zarathian facility, video began to play. It showed Jack Miller in the colony square. It showed the moment the Zarathian soldier fired. It showed Jack falling into his father's arms. "This is what your empire did," Catherine said. "Not to a military target, not to a threat, to a child who wanted to be a scientist." She pressed another button, and the video was transmitted across all Zarathian communication channels. Every ship, station, and colony in range would see what happened on Nova Esperanza. "You took someone irreplaceable from me," Catherine continued. "Now I will take something irreplaceable from each of you." "What do you want?" Zoltar asked, his voice barely audible. "I want your unconditional surrender. I want every person on that outpost as my prisoner. I want your facility intact." "The Empire will send reinforcements," Zoltar warned. "I'm counting on it," Catherine replied. Greg looked at her in surprise. This wasn't a revenge mission. It was a message. "You have 1 hour to evacuate all personnel to the designated areas," Catherine instructed. "Anyone remaining in restricted sections will be considered hostile." The communication ended. Greg turned to the general. "What happens in an hour?" he asked. "We take the outpost," Catherine answered, "and we use it as our base for what comes next." Greg swallowed hard. "And what comes next, General?" Catherine looked at him, her eyes clear and focused. "Justice, Lieutenant. For my son and for every human colony the Zarathians have destroyed." Across Zarathian space, the video of Jack Miller's death spread like wildfire. Along with it came a message. "A human mother has come for vengeance, and she brought an armada." For the first time in centuries, the mighty Zarathian Empire felt fear. They had killed a boy, never imagining his mother would have both the will and the means to make them pay. They had gravely miscalculated, and General Catherine Miller was just getting started. 3 months had passed since General Catherine Miller took control of the Zarathian outpost. The once proud military installation now served as the command center for human operations. The Zarathian flag had been replaced with the Earth Alliance emblem, and human ships patrolled the surrounding space. Major Elizabeth Wright stood at her station in the intelligence center, reviewing the latest reports. As the outpost's chief intelligence officer, she had spent weeks analyzing Zarathian data. What she found shocked her. The door slid open, and General Miller entered. Elizabeth straightened. "Major Wright, you requested a meeting?" Catherine asked. "Yes, General. I've completed my analysis of the Zarathian military archives." Catherine nodded. "Let's hear it." Elizabeth brought up a star map on the main screen. Over the past 20 years, the Zarathian Empire has systematically eliminated 47 non-Zarathian colonies. 23 of them were human. Catherine's expression didn't change. "Show me the pattern." Elizabeth highlighted several star systems. They all follow the same procedure. First, resources are discovered. Then colonists are forcibly relocated, or accidents occur. Finally, Zarathian mining operations begin within months. "Just as I suspected," Catherine said quietly. Elizabeth hesitated, then added, "General, there's something else. I found personal files dating back 12 years. You've been tracking these incidents since before most of these colonies disappeared." Catherine was silent for a moment. "Yes." You knew this was happening. You were preparing for this conflict, long before Jack's death. Catherine's eyes met hers. When I first discovered evidence of the Zarathian expansion tactics, my son was just a baby. Earth Command dismissed my concerns. They didn't want to risk war with the Empire, so you made your own plans, Elizabeth said. I gathered intelligence, I developed technologies, I identified weaknesses in their defenses. Catherine's voice remained even. I hoped I would never need to use any of it. Elizabeth felt a chill. The woman standing before her had been preparing for this war for over a decade. Jack's death hadn't just caused a mother's grief. It had triggered a long-planned response. What happens now? Elizabeth asked. Before Catherine could answer, the communication system beeped. Admiral Rivera's face appeared on screen. General, the Zarathian Emperor has made a move. He sent Grand Marshal Thylex with the Imperial fleet to the Cygnus Crossing. They're setting up a blockade. Catherine nodded. As expected. Thylex is their most decorated commander. The Imperial fleet has 5 times our numbers, Rivera warned. Numbers don't win battles, Admiral. Position and knowledge do. Catherine pulled up a star chart. Prepare the fleet. We leave in 2 hours. After the communication ended, Elizabeth looked at the general. You predicted this? Thylex always uses the same strategies. He believes the Cygnus Crossing is the perfect ambush. Point. Catherine zoomed in on the map. He doesn't know we've mapped every sensor blind spot in that sector. Elizabeth realized that Catherine had been thinking several moves ahead all along. This wasn't a grieving mother lashing out. This was a brilliant strategist executing a carefully designed campaign. 2 days later, Elizabeth stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching as Catherine's plan unfolded. The human fleet approached the Cygnus Crossing from an unexpected angle, using a route that shouldn't have existed according to standard star charts. Zarathian fleet detected, reported the sensor officer. They're moving to intercept. On the main screen, hundreds of Zarathian ships appeared, led by a massive dreadnought. The Imperial Glory, Thylex's flagship. Catherine's voice remained calm. Activate stealth systems on squadrons 3 through 7. Elizabeth watched in amazement, as nearly half of the human fleet seemed to vanish from sensors. They had technology that could hide ships in plain sight. Open a channel to the Imperial Glory, Catherine ordered. Grand Marshal Thylex appeared on screen. His scales were deep purple, almost black, marking his high status. Gold armor covered his chest, and his eyes narrowed at seeing Catherine. General Miller, he said, his voice deep and resonant. The Empire has tolerated your aggression long enough. Surrender your fleet or we will destroy it. Catherine smiled slightly. Grand Marshal Thylex, your reputation precedes you, but I wonder, did the Emperor tell you why I'm here? Did he show you the video of your soldier killing my son? Thylex's expression didn't change. Imperial business is not explained to humans. You have violated Imperial space. You will be eliminated. I don't think so, Catherine replied calmly. At that moment, the hidden human ships reappeared, directly behind and beside the Zarathian fleet. Before Thylex could react, precise energy beams struck his ship's engines and weapon systems. Not to destroy, but to disable. What is this? Thylex demanded as his ship's systems began failing. This is humanity showing you what we're capable of, Catherine answered. Your sensors are now offline. Your weapons are disabled. Your engines are failing. The Imperial Glory drifted helplessly as smaller human ships surrounded it. Throughout the Zarathian fleet, similar scenes played out as strategic systems failed. Boarding parties are ready, General, reported a tactical officer. Proceed, Catherine ordered. I want Thylex alive. Within an hour, human forces had taken control of the Imperial Glory without firing a lethal shot. Grand Marshal Thylex was brought to the bridge of the Vengeance in restraints. The proud Zarathian commander stood before Catherine, his posture still rigid despite his defeat. How? He asked simply. For years your empire has underestimated humans, Catherine replied. You thought us technologically inferior, militarily weak. You never bothered to truly understand us. Elizabeth watched as Catherine approached Thylex. For the first time, she saw emotion cross the general's face. Not rage, but something closer to pity. Your empire killed my boy, Catherine said quietly. I have killed your empire's hope. She turned to a communications officer. Send the Emperor. His Grand Marshal's ceremonial blade. Include my message. That night, as Elizabeth worked in her office, she found more files in the Zerathian database. These were personal logs from Zerathian commanders spanning years. Each one mentioned Catherine Miller. They had been watching her. They knew she was a brilliant strategist. But they had never imagined what she would do if provoked. They had killed her son, never realizing that in doing so, they had triggered the fall of their empire. Throughout Zerathian space, panic spread as the news of Thylex's defeat reached every corner of the empire. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning, and the mother who led them showed no signs of stopping. The human fleet approached the Zerathian homeworld, a beautiful blue-green planet called Zerath Prime. 60 ships moved in perfect formation, led by the UES Vengeance. From the observation deck, Lieutenant Gregory Nelson watched as the planet grew larger. Have you ever seen anything like it? Asked Major Elizabeth Wright, joining him at the window. Greg shook his head. Never thought I'd see the Zerathian homeworld. No human has been this close before. No human has dared, Elizabeth corrected him. Until General Miller. The past 2 weeks had been a series of swift, decisive victories. After capturing Grand, Marshal Thylex, Catherine Miller had led her fleet deeper into Zerathian space, disabling military bases and capturing key outposts. Not a single Zerathian civilian had been harmed. The general's orders had been clear, military targets only. Do you think she'll attack the planet? Greg asked quietly. Elizabeth studied his face. You're afraid she wants revenge. Wouldn't you, if they killed your child? Before Elizabeth could answer, an alert sounded. All officers were called to the main briefing room. Inside, General Miller stood at the front displaying a map of the Zerathian capital city. The room fell silent as she began to speak. We have reached the final phase of our operation, Catherine said. The Zerathian Emperor has requested a direct communication. He will speak to us in 1 hour. Greg watched the general carefully. In the months since her son's death, she had led them through enemy territory with cold precision. She had outsmarted the Empire's best commanders and dismantled their military piece by piece. But he had never seen her smile, never seen her rest. What are your orders, General? Asked Admiral Rivera, who had just arrived from her ship. Catherine looked at her old friend. Maintain position. Ready all systems, but do not target the planet. A murmur ran through the room. Many had expected an attack order. After the Emperor speaks, Catherine continued, I will address the Zerathian people directly. I want our evidence ready. Elizabeth stepped forward. All files are prepared, General. Records of the 47 colonies, the cover-ups, everything. Catherine nodded. Good. Dismissed. As the officers filed out, Admiral Rivera stayed behind. Greg paused at the door, close enough to hear their conversation. Catherine, Rivera said softly, Earth Command has sent me new orders. They're worried about your intentions. Catherine's expression didn't change. What orders? They fear you plan to destroy the Zerathian homeworld. They've ordered me to stop you if necessary. Greg held his breath. Would the general turn on her own people now? Pat, Catherine said, using the Admiral's first name for the first time Greg had ever heard. Do you really think I would kill billions of civilians for what one soldier did? Not the Catherine I knew before, Rivera replied. But grief changes. People. Catherine was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the small hollow photo of her son. Jack loved animals, she said. Once he found an injured Zerathian bird that had somehow made its way to Nova Esperanza. Everyone told him to leave it alone. It might be dangerous, might carry disease. But he built a small shelter for it, fed it, helped it heal. Catherine looked up at her friend. When it was strong enough to fly, he let it go. He cried for days after, but he said it was the right thing to do. She put the photo away. I'm not here to commit genocide, Pat. I'm here to make sure no other parent loses their child to this empire's arrogance. Greg slipped away, his heart lighter than it had been in months. 1 hour later, the Emperor of the Zerathian Empire appeared on screens throughout the human fleet. Emperor Crix VI was older than most Zerathians. His scales faded to a pale blue. The golden crown on his head sparkled with rare gems. General Catherine Miller, he began, his voice deep and formal. You have brought war to our doorstep. You have humiliated our forces. Why? Catherine stood alone on the bridge of the vengeance. Your forces killed my son. One boy, the Emperor said dismissively. A regrettable incident, but not worth this. Conflict. Not just one boy, Catherine replied. Your empire has systematically eliminated human colonies for 20 years. You have killed thousands of humans. Unproven accusations, the Emperor said. Catherine nodded to someone off-screen. Perhaps it's time the truth was known. Suddenly, the Emperor's broadcast was interrupted. On every screen across Zerathian space, evidence began to play. Internal, imperial documents, secret orders, footage of colonies being destroyed, lists of the dead. When the Emperor returned to the screen, his scales had darkened with anger. How dare you, he hissed. Your own people deserve to know the truth, Catherine said calmly. While we've been speaking, this evidence has been broadcast to every Zerathian city, colony, and ship. The Emperor's eyes widened. What do you want? 3 things, Catherine answered. First, your abdication. Second, those responsible for crimes against human colonies will face justice. Third, humans will have permanent representation on the Galactic Council. Or you'll destroy our world? The Emperor asked. No, Catherine said. I am not like you. I don't kill innocents. She leaned forward. But your people now know what you've done. How many worlds you've seized. How many species you've harmed. The truth is, your enemy now, not me. Reports began flooding in. Protests had erupted in the Zerathian capital. Military commanders were surrendering to avoid being associated with the Emperor's crimes. 3 days later, Catherine stood on the steps of the Imperial Palace. Beside her was a young Zerathian female who had been named interim leader. Behind them, representatives from Earth and other worlds watched. Today marks a new chapter, the Zerathian leader announced. We acknowledge the crimes of the past. We seek forgiveness and reconciliation. Later, Catherine visited a garden overlooking the capital city. Admiral Rivera found her there. It's done, Rivera said. The treaty is signed. The Zerathians have agreed to all terms. Catherine nodded. Have the arrangements been made for Nova Esperanza? Yes. The colony will be rebuilt, with a memorial for Jack and all who died. Catherine looked out at the alien sunset. I'm establishing a foundation, the Jack Miller Foundation for Interspecies Understanding, to make sure this never happens again. What will you do now? Rivera asked. First, I'll take something back to Jack, Catherine said softly. The Zerathians have a tree of remembrance. It lives for thousands of years. I'm bringing a sapling to plant at his grave. As the 2 women stood in silence watching the sun set on the Zerathian capital, Catherine thought of her son. They had killed a boy, never realizing they were awakening humanity's full potential. Through grief had come change. Through pain had come peace. Sleep well, my sweet boy, she whispered. The stars are safer now.